All right, let's get into it.
Okay.
Today we're looking at some really captivating history.
Yeah.
JFK, RFK, and MLK.
Mm-hmm.
You know the names, you know the dates, but you might be surprised at what we uncover in this deep dive today.
Yeah.
We're going to break down the official conclusions, take a look at some of the lingering questions, and see how these events still really affect us.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating to see how these events, particularly, JFK's assassination, have kind of transcended history and almost entered the realm of mythology in a way.
Right.
Like
folklore?
Almost like folklore, yeah. Like, think about it, even a show like Seinfeld.
Oh, yeah.
A comedy show was playing with the magic bullet theory.
Right.
Which really shows just how much these events have captivated us.
Yeah, and how they're used. I mean, it's interesting how, like, a comedy show uses it for laughs, but then a documentary uses it for, like...
Exactly.
Two completely different...
Serious historical investigation. Exactly, yeah. It just goes to show how much these events have permeated our culture.
Right. Yeah, they've become like these cultural touchstones, like everybody knows them.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's start with the one that I think most people are familiar with.
Yeah.
JFK.
Sure.
November 22, 1963, Dallas, Texas.
Yep.
We have this young, charismatic president riding in a motorcade, waving to the crowd, and shots ring out.
And everything changes.
Completely changing.
Yeah, it was such a shock. I mean, the nation and then really the world was just in disbelief. I mean, this wasn't just an attack on a politician, It felt like an attack on America itself, on this idea of Camelot.
Yeah.
And then the story gets even weirder.
Oh, yeah.
Lee Harvey Oswald, the alleged assassin, is arrested, but then he's shot on live television by Jack Ruby.
And Ruby's a nightclub owner.
Right, a Dallas nightclub owner.
Like, what is going on here?
It's crazy. Yeah, it's like something out of a movie.
Yeah, it was like too crazy to even comprehend. And it happened so fast.
Yeah.
So the Warren Commission comes out and they conclude that Oswald and Ruby acted alone.
Right.
But even at the time, people had doubts.
Of course. And those doubts have only grown over the years.
Yeah.
Fueled by these inconsistencies in the official story.
Right.
And this nagging sense that there's more to the story.
Right.
For example, you have the theory that Fidel Castro was behind it, as revenge for the Bay of Pigs.
Okay.
And that theory really plays into those Cold War fears.
Right.
That were so prevalent at the time.
Yeah, it's like the official narrative left all these holes that needed filling in.
Yeah. And those holes have been filled by so many different theories,
right.
Some plausible, some completely out there.
Right.
But what's interesting is that those theories often tell us more about the anxieties of the time than about what actually happened.
Yeah.
It's like they're a reflection of the cultural and political landscape of that era.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, before we dive into those theories, let's move on to another tragic event.
All right.
The assassination of Martin Luther King Jr.
Right. And this happens just a few years after JFK.
April 4th, 1968.
Yep. 1968. Memphis, Tennessee.
Dr. King, a leader in the civil rights movement.
A true icon, yeah.
Is shot and killed on a balcony at his motel.
It was a devastating loss, especially for the African-American community who saw him as this beacon of hope for equality.
Yeah, and like the JFK assassination, it raised a ton of questions.
Absolutely. And of course, it sparked all sorts of speculation and theories.
Yeah. So James Earl Ray confesses.
Right.
But later he recants his confession.
Yeah, he claims he was just a pawn in some bigger scheme.
Right. And this is where things get really interesting.
Oh, yeah.
There's talk of this mysterious figure named Raoul. Who's linked to the assassination by Ray and others.
Right, including a Memphis tavern owner named Lloyd Jowers. Jowers actually claimed that he was involved in a mafia plot to kill King.
Wow.
And that this Raoul guy played a key role.
Interesting.
Yeah, Jowers was a controversial figure, though,
Right.
He owned this diner called Jim's Grill near the Lorraine Motel where King was killed.
Right.
And he didn't come out with these claims until years later.
Yeah.
Which obviously raised some eyebrows. But, his claims resonated with people who believed that King was targeted by powerful forces who wanted to silence him and his message.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, he was such a powerful figure.
Absolutely.
That a lot of people probably did want to silence him.
Yeah, he was a threat to the status quo. And there were a lot of people who wanted to maintain that status quo.
Right.
So it's not hard to imagine that some of them might have resorted to extreme measures.
Yeah, I could say
to
that.
get rid of him.
It's definitely a compelling theory.
It is, yeah. And it's one that continues to be debated today.
Absolutely. So we've got these 2 assassinations and a lot of unanswered questions.
Right. And a lot of speculation.
And a lot of speculation.
And a lot of intrigue.
A lot of intrigue.
Yeah.
And that's not even the end of it.
No, not even close.
Right.
We still have one more assassination to cover, and this one might be the most shocking of all.
Right.
Because it hits so close to home.
Right.
It involves a member of America's most famous political dynasty.
Right.
The Kennedys. We're talking about Robert F. Kennedy.
Bobby Kennedy.
RFK.
Yeah. And this deep dive is only going to get more interesting from here.
Oh, yeah. We're just getting started.
All right. We'll be right back after this break.
Sounds good. So to add to all this, a former FBI agent, Donald Wilson, he comes forward and claims that he found documents in Ray's car mentioning this Raul character.
Wow. Okay.
And even hinting at possible connections to the Kennedy assassination.
Oh.
But then, get this, he says these documents are stolen from him, suggesting some kind of cover-up at the highest levels of government.
Like a conspiracy.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's pretty wild, right?
That is pretty wild.
You see why this stuff is so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like a puzzle.
Yeah.
With all these missing pieces.
Yeah. And the more pieces you find, the more questions you have.
Exactly. And the more you realize how much we might not know.
So we've got these 2 assassinations, all these loose ends.
Yeah.
And then we have another assassination.
Right.
RFK.
June 5th, 1968.
Wow.
Just 2 months after MLK.
Yeah.
The nation is still reeling from King's death.
Yeah.
And then this happens.
And it's another Kennedy.
Right. It's like history is repeating itself.
Yeah.
This time it's Los Angeles. RFK is celebrating his victory in the California primary, and boom, he's gone.
It's like a bad dream.
It really is. Yeah. A nightmare that America can't seem to wake up from.
This one really felt like a gut punch.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, not only because of who RFK was.
Yeah.
But because it was so reminiscent of his brother's assassination.
Yet too close.
Too close for comfort. Yeah.
Way too close.
Yeah. So you've got Sirhan. He's convicted of RFK's murder.
Yeah.
But again, the case is full of these unanswered questions.
Right. Like
conflicting accounts. You know, some witnesses claim they saw a second gunman. There were questions about the ballistics evidence.
Well.
But unlike JFK and MLK, RFK's death hasn't generated the same level of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, maybe people were just tired.
Yeah, maybe.
Or maybe because Sirhan was caught and convicted.
Yeah, there was a sense of closure, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
But regardless, all 3 of these assassinations, they're all part of this recent executive order by President Trump to declassify government documents related to these cases.
Okay, everyone's waiting to see what's in those documents.
Yeah, there's a lot of anticipation.
A lot of anticipation.
But also some skepticism.
Yeah. I mean, will we really find anything new?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some people believe that these documents could finally reveal the truth.
Right.
You know, maybe there's some hidden evidence that will blow the case wide open.
Yeah, the smoking gun.
Exactly, the smoking gun.
But then you have to wonder if these documents will really change anything.
Right. I mean, it's unlikely that they'll completely rewrite history.
Yeah.
But they could offer some valuable insights into the investigations and motivations of the assassin, political climate of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, even if there's no earth-shattering revelations, the very act of declassifying these documents is significant.
Right. It shows that we're still grappling with these events.
Exactly. It speaks to the power of these assassinations.
Yeah.
And to this ongoing quest for transparency and accountability.
But then the big question, will these documents give us closure?
Right. Or will they just lead to more questions, more speculation?
Right.
It's tough to say for sure. I think it depends on the person. Some people might find comfort in the release of information, while others might see it as confirmation of their suspicions, further fueling their belief in conspiracy theories.
Right.
I think it's important to remember that even with the release of these documents, there will likely be redactions.
Right.
You know, interpretations will vary.
Yeah.
We might never have definitive answers.
Yeah, and that's what makes this so fascinating.
Exactly.
It's like we're all detectives trying to piece together a puzzle with missing pieces.
Right.
We have these glimpses into the past, but the full picture remains elusive.
The mystery.
A mystery.
Yeah.
But even if we never solve the mystery,
right,
the act of searching for the truth tells us something about ourselves.
Absolutely.
About our need to understand, to find meaning in these tragedies.
You know, it's a testament to the enduring power of these assassinations.
Yeah. They continue to spark debate.
Right. They challenge assumptions.
They remind us that history is not set in stone.
Exactly.
It's a conversation.
An ongoing conversation.
And that conversation often reflects our own biases, our own fears and hopes.
Absolutely. It's easy to get caught up in the allure of conspiracy theories.
Right.
To seek simple explanations for complex events.
Right.
But the real value might lie in embracing the uncertainty.
Yeah.
In acknowledging the limits of our knowledge.
And in recognizing that these events were symptoms of deeper societal tensions.
Absolutely.
A nation grappling with issues of race, violence, and political polarization.
Yeah.
They forced America to look in the mirror.
To confront some uncomfortable truths about itself.
Yeah.
And those truths are still relevant today.
Yeah, absolutely. The questions we ask about these assassinations, the way we interpret the evidence, the theories we embrace or reject.
It all reflects our current cultural and political climate.
Right.
It's like we're still trying to make sense of these events. And in doing so, we're also trying to make sense of ourselves.
And who we are as a nation.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think the most important thing is to approach these events with a critical eye.
Okay.
Don't just accept any narrative at face value, whether it's the official story or conspiracy theory.
Right.
Question everything.
Yeah.
Examine the evidence and consider multiple perspectives.
Right.
It's also important to remember that history is rarely black and white.
Yeah.
It's full of shades of gray, ambiguities and contradictions.
Right.
Embrace that complexity.
Yeah.
It's in those nuances that we often find the most profound insights.
Yeah, I like that.
And finally, consider the broader context. These assassinations weren't just about the individuals who were killed.
Right.
They were about the social and political forces that shaped their lives and their deaths.
Right.
By understanding that context, we can better appreciate the lasting impact of these events and their continued relevance today.
These assassinations really did leave an undeniable mark on American history.
Absolutely. They changed everything.
They shaped our culture,
Yeah.
our politics, our sense of national identity.
Yeah. They forced us to confront these difficult questions about power, justice, the fragility of democracy.
Yeah.
And while we may never fully unravel the mysteries surrounding these events, the journey itself is invaluable. It compels us to engage with the past, to grapple with these uncomfortable truths, and to strive for a better future.
Yeah.
You know, the search for truth is an ongoing process.
Right.
And even if we never reach a definitive conclusion, the act of questioning, of seeking understanding, that's what ultimately enriches our understanding of ourselves and of the world around us.
Well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's like we're putting together this puzzle, but we're missing some pieces.
Yeah.
These little glimpses into the past.
Right.
But the full picture.
It's always just out of reach.
Yeah. But even if we never solve the mystery, I think the act of searching for the truth, tells us a lot about ourselves.
Yeah.
This need to understand.
We need to make sense of things, even when they're senseless.
Right. Even when there are these horrible tragedies.
It speaks to the power of these events, Right. They continue to spark debate.
Yeah.
Challenge our assumptions.
Yeah.
Remind us that history isn't static.
Right.
It's a conversation.
A conversation that I think often reflects our own biases.
Yeah. Right. Our fears, our hopes.
Yeah. It's easy to get caught up in these conspiracy theories.
Absolutely.
Because they offer these simple explanations.
Yeah. Simple explanations for complex events.
Right.
But maybe the real value is in embracing the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Recognizing that we might never have all the answers.
And recognizing that these events weren't just isolated incidents.
Right. They were symptoms of these deeper societal tensions. Issues of race, violence, political polarization.
Yeah, America was going through a lot.
A lot of upheaval.
Yeah, and these assassinations.
They forced America to confront some really uncomfortable truths about itself.
Right, and those truths are still relevant today.
Absolutely.
Like the questions we ask about these assassinations, how we interpret the evidence, the theories we believe or don't believe.
It all says something about us.
Yeah, about where we are as a nation.
Right. It's like we're still trying to make sense of these events.
Yeah.
And in doing so, we're trying to make sense of ourselves.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
What are some of the key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's important to approach these events with a critical eye.
Right.
Don't just accept any narrative at face value, whether it's the official story or a popular conspiracy theory.
And question everything.
Exactly. Question everything. Examine the evidence. Consider multiple perspectives.
Yeah, and remember that history is rarely black and white.
Right. It's messy. It's complicated. It's full of contradictions.
Yeah, embrace the complexity.
Yeah, because it's in those nuances, those gray areas, that we often find the most valuable insights.
Here, finally, consider the broader context.
Right. These assassinations weren't just about the individuals who were killed.
Right.
They were about the social and political forces that shaped their lives and their deaths.
By understanding that context,
we can better appreciate the lasting impact of these events and their continued relevance today.
Yeah, these assassinations really did leave an undeniable mark on American history.
They changed the course of the country.
Yeah, they shaped our culture, our politics, our sense of who we are as a nation.
They forced us to confront these really difficult questions about power, justice, the fragility of democracy.
And while we may never fully understand what happened,
right,
the journey itself is invaluable.
Yeah.
It compels us to engage with the past,
to learn from it,
to grapple with uncomfortable truths, and to work towards a better future.
The search for truth is a never-ending journey. And even if we never reach a definitive conclusion, the act of questioning, of seeking understanding, is what ultimately enriches our understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.